I've been asked that question 100 times. Day by day, we get better and better. We keep getting better inside the house. Results are going to come.
Scott?
I was going to ask you, given the depth of your roster at this point, do you have fewer questions going into camp, or do the questions the same amount? Are they just different questions?
I'd say we have fewer holes in our roster than we used to, but there's still some questions. There's certain spots where we feel really good about who the guy's going to be, and other spots where there's going to be a competition for it. One thing I told the team and going to tell the coaches, and have told them both, is I want to kind of make those decisions a little earlier than normal, at least in-house, to try to get a little continuity with groups, offense and defense. So guys better show up ready to go and compete for the spots that are up for grabs.
Why did you kind of want to make that shift?
I don't know if it's a shift. The thing we've been preaching to the team all year and we're going to continue to preach to them is self-inflicted wounds and a little bit of lack of detail and discipline here and there has hurt us. Penalties have hurt us, turnovers have hurt us, not getting turnovers back on the other side, special teams. Those are going to be the primary emphasis of our camp. The kids know that. I think experience helps you with those details, and we're going to be more experienced than we have been. But also continuity helps, and making sure that the main guys are working with the main guys a little more often earlier on is probably going to help us with that.
Adrian, do you think about his role in your run game any differently at all this year, given the fact that he's missed a little bit of time at least in each of his 3 years, and also the inexperience you have behind him, or do you just turn him loose?
Well, I've said publicly I think we've run him a little too much. That being said, there's going to be ways where that's the best play we can call, is something that might involve him carrying the ball. But we'll try to limit those as much as we can to keep whatever quarterback's playing on the field. Anxious to see the 2 or 3 guys behind Adrian compete and try to decide who that guy is. And if we get those guys up to speed, then we can probably be a little less conservative with what we do with Adrian.
Along those lines, Scott, and those backup quarterbacks, do you adjust how you handle reps? Is it any different than what you would usually do? Do you see what I'm saying?
I want to make sure they both get as many reps as they need to get to be ready, and also for us to decide who the next guy in the game would be. So those guys will get more reps, but in general, I think a lot of guys down roster for us are going to get more reps in this camp.
I know Ryan challenged his running backs to have a summer behind the scenes. What's just your overview going into camp of what you've got there and what you want to see?
Well, running back's one of the spots that's up for grabs, and I'm not going to make any secrets about that. Those guys know that. I think we got a ton of talent in that room, but I don't want it to be by committee, ideally. I want to have a main guy and a backup or 2 that are going to share the bulk of the carries, and it's yet to be determined who those guys are. So those guys know, especially at that spot and a few others, that the competition is going to start on day 1, and we're going to try to figure out who the lead horse is.
With only 8 full padded practices, how important will it be to use those to kind of evaluate positions like running back?
I think it's important. The change in practice structure really isn't going to affect us that much. Kind of affect our acclimatization schedule and what we do at the beginning. But we're not going to have 6 scrimmages and full tackle scrimmages to the ground anyway. You can get done about everything you can with full pads on when you have shells. So we'll get plenty of chances to evaluate the tackling and the blocking and the running with the running backs. I don't think the changes are going to affect our camp much.
Kind of a roster nuts and bolts question, but I know Yeager wasn't listed on the roster anymore. What was his situation?
Yeah, I can't talk about guys' personal situations, but he was dealing with something, and he's not going to be a part of the team going forward.
Are there any players held out for injury for all season or anything like that?
No, I think the closest to season is probably going to be Will Honus. I've talked about him a bunch, but what a great kid, what a good teammate, a valuable part of our team, and got hurt again in spring practice. I'm doubtful that he'll be able to come back for us this season. Most other guys are going to be ready to go for day 1 of fall camp, with a couple guys lingering a little longer than that.
What about Fedoni?
Fedoni was one that'll be longer. Expect him to be ready to start practicing and potentially play late in the year, but we won't have him early on.
How anxious are you to see some of those freshman receivers, not just the guys who just got here in June, but guys who weren't quite available to you, like Will Dixon, maybe what Alante Brown?
Yeah, receiver's another spot where there's going to be competition, and not necessarily because we don't know who some of our lead guys are going to be, but a bunch of receivers get an opportunity to play, and I want to find out who the best ones are. And the depth and talent at that position is the best it's been since I've been at Nebraska. So we're going to get the young guys opportunities to get reps and show us what they can do, and I'm anxious to see who comes out on top of that.
Some of those guys get knocked up to scholarship or a walk-on. Lubick mentioned Falcon Lever. I don't know, maybe you'd even address that.
Yeah, I can talk about that down the road. I feel blessed and lucky to be in the position where you can help young men that choose to walk on come into Nebraska and eventually get their school paid for. I think we're up to between 20 and 25 guys in my 3.5 years that have been awarded scholarships either temporarily or permanently. When the time's right, I'll give you guys that list.
Can you speak to what you guys added at kicker to kind of improve the kickoffs this year? I think Brendan Frankie and the Meyer kid, and how much of an emphasis that was to get kickoffs through the end zone this year?
Big emphasis. Again, special teams is going to be a huge emphasis for us. It has been in the past, but I want the kids to understand it. Being good at specialists is a big part of that. Obviously, having talent to cover kicks and do those types of things is a big part of it too. And we're getting more talented and have more depth, so we should be able to cover kicks better. But kickoff has been kind of a thorn in our side. There's no kick returns if you kick it through the end zone, and a couple of the guys that we brought in, I think, have the talent to be able to make us a lot better on those units.
You have a bunch of guys on defense that obviously have played a lot, so how do you balance having more, good on good or good with good, and then also maybe giving young guys chances or not running a fence to your Dome too much during camp?
Yeah, without saying too much, we're going to split up practice a lot more and have multiple groups running at once, a lot like we did when Coach Osborne was coaching here. I think that's going to give young guys opportunities to get reps and show us what they can do while giving old guys reps. Also have to do some balance with some of the super seniors and veterans to make sure we're giving them what they need to be ready to play without running them into the ground. So I think we have a good plan for that, and I think everybody's going to get all the reps they want.
What's Cam Taylor Britt's ceiling as a player, in your opinion?
Cam's a freak athlete. Tremendous talent. I think you started to see flashes of what he could become last year with some of the plays that he made. There's no doubt in my mind he can be one of the best players on our team and one of the best corners in the conference and beyond that.
Day today, practice tomorrow. Scott, what's the overall mood of the team? What's the excitement level for the guys?
I've had guys come into my office that are showing up today. Similar to what I've said all year, this is the best feeling around our building by a long shot that we've had. Guys genuinely excited to be back and around each other and playing football. I know for me personally, one of the hardest parts about starting camp is you just spend a whole summer with your family, and now you're not going to get to see them as much. So I had a great summer with Ashley and RJ and Allie and got to spend a ton of time with them, and you kind of get a little sad that you're going to go back to work for as many hours as coaches have to put in. But when the guys come up into the office and you're back around the team, it makes you feel a lot better about that.
You're pretty positive about your offensive line in Indianapolis, but you held back one compliment that I think you were going to give them. What is it about them that you like, and then what's that one more thing you want to see in camp and during the season?
If I had to pick one thing, the attitude is changing. It's transforming. From I hope we get the job done to we're going to go make this happen, being a little more aggressive and physical. I know the guys have spent some time this summer around some of our ex-players, Aaron Graham and Rob Zadechka and Sty and Hoskinson and some of the guys that have played long ago, and I think have had some of those conversations. But the leaders on your team have to have the right mentality, and particularly when it comes to the front line on offense and the front line on defense. And it's probably still a little young, but I'm really starting to see that type of determination from those guys.
But there was something you held back too. What's the thing you still want to see from, that makes you feel really good about what?
Probably just experience. Again, last year wasn't a normal season, but gosh, we needed that season. When you look around our roster, from Juergens being young to Piper to Benhart to Corcoran to Ty Robinson to Garrett Nelson to all our running backs to some of the receivers that were new. You can get a lot done in practice, but you really make your improvement when you get game reps and get experience. And a lot of those guys are young but have experience. I just want to see them keep developing with the more experience they get.
I think you talked to Indy about trying to get guys vaccinated and not knowing quite what the protocol is going to look like. Do you know what a percentage or ballpark on your team of where that number lies right now?
I don't. We're really careful with FERPA rules around here and not giving personal information. I'm not comfortable yet with how many I perceive are vaccinated. We're going to try to do our best to educate the guys on it and give them more opportunities to get there. And like I said in Indianapolis, I think vaccination's the best way for us to have an uninterrupted season. So we're going to do our best to educate the guys and try to improve that.
Have you gotten any more guidance from the league about what each school will be required to do?
Right now, to my understanding, a lot of it's going to be based on university rules and kind of left to each campus to figure out protocols. So I know the university, through Ronnie's leadership and Ted's leadership, have protocols, and we'll certainly have to adhere to those, and we'll see where it goes beyond that.
You guys got their feet wet with NIL over this month. How are you guys communicating with them, handling responsibilities during camp and then responsibilities during the season?
That's kind of still a work in progress with this NIL thing. I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg on that around the country and for sure in Nebraska. I don't know down the road if we're going to have to iron out a time a week for guys to be able to go take advantage of things like that. There's a lot of decisions and ideas that we're going to have to come up with down the road. But like I've said a bunch of times, I think Nebraska football players and student athletes are uniquely positioned to take advantage of this because of the fan interest in Nebraska. It's the only show in town. All eyes are on them. I expect our players to do as well as anyone in the country with this when the dust all settles.
Two more for Coach. Scott, it's, talking about NIL, in the back of your mind or the front of your mind, is there any concern about guys that are just not taking care of business, like in the classroom and in football, because they're distracted by NIL activity?
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns I have as this goes forward, and again, I want to stress I'm a fan of it because I think the players deserve it, and anything we can do for our student athletes is a positive thing. I think we're going to be able to, not us, but the state of Nebraska is going to provide our football players and student athletes with more opportunities than they're going to get almost anywhere else. There are going to be distractions. There's going to be other issues that we've tried to come up with, even tax issues with kids that start making money and don't know how to pay their taxes or even know that they have to. There's people from outside coming and getting them involved in bad deals, the timing of it all, the time management of it all. There's a lot of issues that need to be worked out. At the end of the day, I want to coach football. I don't want to have anything to do with that and can't have anything to do with that. So there are going to be a lot of challenges, but we'll do our best to anticipate them and then handle them when they come up.
First fan day in a couple of years. How much does it mean the fans coming out here and supporting you in the hot weather and all that?
It's great. When I was a little boy, I've said this a bunch, but man, Irving Fryer and Mike Rozier and Turner Gill, I didn't look up to anybody more than those guys, and to have an opportunity to come meet with them. I still have an autograph program that all three of those guys signed from 1983 in my basement. So especially when the kids are able to come out and be around some of these players is a special thing that we haven't been able to do for a while.